Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the CFP Eliminator Series, where we take a comprehensive look around the entire college football landscape to take a real look and see what teams out there at the FBS level still have a realistic shot to make the college football playoff at the end of the regular season, as well as at the end of conference championship weekend. As we are getting through, we've got through the first month of the season, and now we're starting to move into really what's considered a true fall, that October, November timeframe, where it's really a gut check time for a lot of these teams around the country. So we're going to go ahead and dive into that, see some new teams that are eliminated, who's still alive at the very least, and then on top of all that, take a look at some elimination games that are going to be happening around the country as well, going into week number 6. So hopefully you guys are excited for all that. If you are excited for all that and so much more, make sure you do a couple of things for me real fast. Hit that like button, as well as hit that subscribe button if you do enjoy the content that happens here on the channel. And it really does help grow the channel tremendously when you do both of those things, and it doesn't take too long to do whatsoever. So with that being said, as we get through the aftermath of week number 5, so very interesting here at this point. Not a ton of movement. This is probably the slowest week that we saw from a pure elimination standpoint since week 0. When week 0 we only had a handful of games that were played in the first place. So taking a look at the tier maker, we actually only had 4 teams that were eliminated this past weekend. 2 of those are from the Big 12, though. The Big 12 was considered the biggest loser. So I don't think any of these should be a surprise to Oklahoma State. They suffered their 3rd loss, one of those losses being against Tulsa, and then they fired their head coach, and then they were smacked around by Baylor. So they got a 3rd loss. One of those losses to a group of 5 opponents, so that's why Oklahoma State is eliminated. And then West Virginia. West Virginia, it's a similar concept for them. They also have a G5 loss to the Ohio Bobcats early on in the year, and then the last couple of weeks has been a real disaster in terms of like playing legitimate competition, riding that high back and winning the backyard brawl against the Pitt Panthers, who do also make an appearance on here. They're now in a must-win out category in order to have any kind of at-large consideration. And so West Virginia was knocked out. Only 2 other teams that were included in terms of week number 5 eliminations. So one of the teams is Utah State. They don't have any G5 losses yet, but we have seen them blown out multiple times. We've seen them blown out to Texas A&M, and then this past weekend they were blown out against Vanderbilt as well. So because of that, that's why Utah State is officially eliminated, at least in my opinion, because they do have multiple blowout losses at this point. And then Rice, we saw them last weekend. We saw them in an elimination game against Navy. Rice, gotta give Rice some credit. They did cover against the midshipmen. However, Navy was still able to find a win out, and they also had the loss to Houston as well. So Rice not in a position to really have any kind of consideration, even if they do find a way to win the American, which is the best G5 league. So not a lot of eliminations happening here in week number 5, but what I will at least say is we are seeing some more programs getting closer to being knocked out, right? So we see a few power conference programs that are starting to get to a point where not only do they need to win, they do also need to get some help need some carnage within their conference in order to make something shake in terms of the playoff. So 3 of those such schools, we saw Arkansas, they were dominated by Notre Dame. They now have 3 losses. One of the losses is to Memphis, which again, G5 opponent, not a good look for the Razorbacks. They're going to need to win out. Boston College, they now straight up have 3 losses. One of them was to Michigan State, and then some of them also with a loss to Cal and Stanford. So they do have multiple ACC losses. They cannot lose again, otherwise Boston College is done. And then Colorado now coming in with 3 losses as well. Multiple Big 12 losses too. They do have a loss to Houston on top of a loss to BYU, which happened in the late night this past weekend. Coupling that with Georgia Tech and losing that game in week number 1, Colorado on very thin ice as well. So those are some new teams that were added in terms of teams that not only need to win out, but they do also need some help as well. And then finally, in terms of some teams that need to be added, that were added because they did lose, but if they win out, they can at least get some at-large consideration, even if they don't end up winning their conferences. So 5 teams that were added, most of them were from the ACC, all but one actually. So Wake Forest is one of them. They did lose to Georgia Tech. They might have been screwed over in that game, a game that honestly Demon Deacons should have won, but it didn't work out that way. Syracuse, a similar matter. Well, they weren't screwed over. They were just crushed by Duke. Duke's still hanging on for dear life, a team that is in that win out and get helped here. Syracuse now has their second loss of the year. Pitt also lost their second game. They lost their second game to Louisville. They lose again, then they will fall out of that at-large consideration. And then NC State. We saw NC State with an upset loss to Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech eliminated a couple of weeks ago after they were dominated by Old Dominion. So now NC State, after starting 3-0, they have lost 2 games in a row. And then Kansas. Kansas actually loses to Cincinnati. They also have the loss to Missouri. But if Kansas can win out, they will at least get at-large consideration. So that is your current overall national picture. Let me know how you guys feel in the comment section. Do you think there's a team that I've already eliminated that's still alive? Do you think there's a team that I haven't eliminated that should have been realistically? Definitely let me know down in the comment section down below. And in terms of games that are happening in regards to CFP elimination matchups, we actually only have one such CFP elimination game on our hands in week number 6. But before I do dive into it, once again, I do really appreciate your guys' support throughout the course of this series. And if you're really enjoying the content, make sure you go ahead, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. But yeah, man, let's go ahead and jump into that one game that we have remaining that is a CFP elimination game in terms of week number 6. The Warhawks of ULM Monroe, they are going to make that daunting journey up north in order to take on the Northwestern Wildcats in a little bit later of a non-conference game than usual. So they will actually be playing during the 3:30 window over on the Big Ten Network, as both teams are looking to seek in building momentum before getting into really the meat of conference play for both programs, as both teams have only played one, maybe 2 conference games each. On the visiting side, gotta talk about Brian Vincent, and listen, Brian Vincent absolutely has to get his flowers. We did see some rumors over the course of the offseason about ULM possibly wanting to drop down to the FCS level, and I think there's no secret that this Warhawks place in general, it is one of the most difficult places to win in all college football, in spite of the fact that Louisiana Monroe is located in such a talent-rich area, having the Bayou right in your backyard, as well as having like the state of Texas not too far from you. The state of Florida isn't too far from you. But in spite of that, because of those lack of financial resources, it's very clear that Brian Vincent is maximizing the talent and the resources that he does have at his disposal. That was evident last season with ULM being able to go forth and nearly make it to a bowl game. They finished 5-7 last year, and even this year they're off to a pretty good start. Take away the Alabama game for a split second. The Alabama game was an absolute splattering, but beyond that, winning against St. Francis in Pennsylvania, beating those guys pretty convincingly, and then also beating UTEP as well as beating Arkansas State, beating both of those teams, both teams which have more invested in their football programs than what the Warhawks have. It's very clear that this team does play really hard, even though this team, in spite of the fact that he did add about 40 players in the transfer portal, numerous transfers on both sides of the ball, it's still like a somewhat thin roster. You know, they filled gaps to where there's no glaring weaknesses, but it's not a super thick in terms of depth purposes. So definitely want to give Brian Vincent his flowers from that perspective. While you're looking at the other side in Northwestern, obviously Northwestern, being in a bigger conference, they have a little bit of a bigger TV deal that they get to work off of as well, which makes it really fascinating, right? So Northwestern, they're 2-2 on the year. They essentially, what's happened for Northwestern this year is that Northwestern, they whenever they played against anybody that has had a pulse this year, Northwestern not only losing to those particular teams, but they also went ahead and got ransacked by both of those teams. That includes Tulane back in week 1. They lost by 3 touchdowns to the Green Wave. They also played Oregon at home, and Oregon handled their business pretty convincingly. Obviously, Oregon is an elite program, a top 5 team in its own right. But when they haven't played against a team with a pulse, with no pulse, then they've looked pretty good. I mean, dominating Western Illinois, for example, and then UCLA. No, they didn't cover against the Bruins, but they found a way to win against UCLA, and I think that deserves some merit, even though UCLA having a disaster of a season in their own right. So, but it's very clear that at least like the strengths of his team, the offense is starting to get better in terms of its ability to maintain drives. The offensive line, it's a solid offensive line. And defensively, Northwestern, they do play hard. And the fact of the matter is they are at least playing at home as well. So let's go ahead and check what the model is feeling. So Northwestern definitely is a pretty comfortable favorite as of right now. Northwestern, based upon our model, 12.5 point favorite right now on FanDuel. As I'm recording this, I'm covering this on a Sunday afternoon, shortly after like just getting like those first like initial reactions from FanDuel. Model was higher on Northwestern. It is a 17.5 point favorite. Now, I think that's because of really the talent discrepancy in terms of what Northwestern brings to the table versus what UL Monroe brings to the table right now, which again, I mean, is not really Brian Vincent's fault. I think this is going to be one of those games where Northwestern, they're going to impose their size. They do have a size advantage. I think Preston Stone is certainly getting better in terms of taking care of the ball and just generally forcing ULM into third and long passing down conversions. If the Warhawks want to be competitive and if they don't want to be eliminated on Saturday, you're looking at a path in terms of where the Warhawks, they're going to have to obviously play well defensively, play with tempo, keep Northwestern off balance, while simultaneously winning that time of possession battle. But if, and of course, like if you do give up scores, ironically, you would be better off in terms of not, I guess, giving up those scores quickly, like on short, explosive play type drives versus those long, methodical drives that allow your defense to be worn down, just given the kind of, I guess, like the amount of, I guess, questions I have about the Warhawks' depth, right? So, again, I really love the competitive nature of the Warhawks, man. You know, one of the great memes in college football, like the ULM mention memes, those are phenomenal. I love Brian Vincent as a head coach. I think he's a wonderful head coach. I think he's even an underrated head coach, just given where he's at and him being 5-7 and maybe not being in a position to where ULM is expected to do too much. Although they look pretty solid outside the Alabama game. But with that being said, I just don't think they have enough to beat a power conference team, even though Northwestern, definitely on the lower end of that P4 spectrum. I think the Warhawks are a year away. So I'm going with Northwestern winning. And frankly, I am also going with Northwestern covering. I do think that, you know, we are seeing this team slowly improve, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. And with the Warhawks, I think they'll keep it close early, but I think in the second half, we are going to start to see this Northwestern team really impose its will. And I think Northwestern not only wins this game, but I think they cover as well. I got Northwestern winning 35-17. being your final score. But guys, that is actually going to wrap things up here in terms of what we have going on in terms of the Week 6 edition of the College Football Eliminator Series in the 2025 college football season. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section down below. And then also, if you came around and you watched this entire video, first of all, I do appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. But with that being said, if you haven't done it yet, definitely make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. It helps grow the channel tremendously, get it out more to college football sickos like you. And listen, man, you have a chance to be an A1 since day one. I mean, we got to keep it real with you, man. But hey, with that being said, I'm your host, Jake of College Football Red Zone, signing off. Hope you guys are all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.